The Grand Assembly Hall of Nexaris's Prime was the largest structure Ambassador Ethan Cole had ever seen. The ceiling rose so high that clouds of vapor drifted near the top, lit by floating orbs that cast everything in pale blue light. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved seats that surrounded the central platform, their bodies ranging from insectoid to gaseous, two things Ethan could not even begin to describe. He stood at the center of it all, feeling very small and very human. Behind him stood his delegation. Commander Lisa Harding wore her Earth Defense Fleet uniform with quiet pride, her gray eyes scanning the room for threats. Chief Negotiator Daniel Perry clutched his data tablet, his knuckles white from tension. Science Advisor Claire Mitchell kept her face calm, but Ethan could see her hands trembling slightly at her sides. They had traveled 47 light-years for this moment. Humanity's first formal contact with the Galactic Council, the chance to join a community of spacefaring civilizations that had existed for 8,000 years. High Arbiter Valethus rose from his elevated throne at the far end of the hall. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with iridescent green scales that caught the light as he moved. Her compound eyes studied the humans with an expression Ethan recognized immediately. It was the look of someone examining insects. "The Council acknowledges the presence of the Earth delegation," Valethus announced. His voice was deep and resonant, translated into English by the small device attached to Ethan's collar. "We have reviewed your petition for membership and your proposed terms of partnership." Ethan straightened his shoulders. "Thank you, High Arbiter. Humanity comes to this council in a spirit of cooperation. We believe that our two civilizations can benefit greatly from each other. We offer our advances in fusion power, quantum computing, and medical technology. In exchange, we seek only fair treatment and equal standing among the stars." A ripple of sound moved through the assembly. Ethan could not tell if it was laughter or something else. "Ambassador." Crixilla of the Venthri Dominion leaned forward in her seat. She was insectoid, with a hard black shell and mandibles that clicked when she spoke. "Equal standing," she repeated. "The human believes his species deserves equal standing." "We have much to offer," Ethan said, keeping his voice steady. "Our scientists have made breakthroughs that we believe would interest even the most advanced members of this council." "Your species discovered faster than light travel 30 years ago," Crixala said. "The Venthri have traveled between stars for 6,000 years, the Zethrani for 9,000. You are children playing with toys you do not understand." Claire Mitchell stepped forward. "With respect, Ambassador, computing advances have already solved problems that your own scientists have struggled with for centuries. We came here to share, not to compete." Valethus raised one clawed hand, and the hall fell silent. "The Council has made its decision," he said. "Earth will be classified as a Tier 7 civilization. You will be permitted to colonize 3 systems within the outer reaches. Mining rights, trade routes, and military capabilities will be restricted according to standard protocols for new species." Ethan felt his stomach drop. Tier 7 was the lowest classification. It meant humanity would be little more than a servant race, dependent on council approval for every decision. "High Arbiter," he said carefully, "we came here offering partnership, equal exchange. Surely there is room for negotiation." "Tier 7 civilizations do not negotiate terms," Crixala interrupted, her mandibles clicking with what might have been amusement. "They accept them." The council members around the hall made sounds of approval. The Zethrani delegates, gaseous beings, contained in environmental suits, pulsed with colors that seemed to indicate pleasure. A group of reptilian beings near the back stamped their feet in agreement. "Daniel." Perry touched Ethan's arm and leaned close. "They've already divided our solar system's asteroid belt among themselves," he whispered. "I intercepted the transmission during the opening ceremonies. They never intended to negotiate. This was decided before we arrived." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about the journey here, the hope that had filled his crew, the dreams of a humanity united with other civilizations among the stars. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, about the future he had imagined for her. Then he opened his eyes and looked at Valethus. "I must ask for clarification," Ethan said. "Under these terms, humanity would have no voice in council decisions." We would be forbidden from expanding beyond the 3 systems you have designated. We would be required to share all our technology, while receiving nothing in return. Is that correct? Veilthus blinked all 4 of his compound eyes. That is the standard arrangement for Tier 7 civilizations. Yes. And if we refuse? The hall went completely silent. Even the floating light orbs seemed to dim. Refuse? Veilthus repeated the word as if he had never heard it before. Earth rejects the Council's terms, Ethan said. His voice was quiet but clear, carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. We withdraw from these negotiations. Effective immediately, humanity will pursue its own path in this galaxy. Crixala rose from her seat, her shell rattling with what could only be anger. You cannot simply walk away. No species has ever walked away from the Council. Then we will be the first. Veilthus descended from his throne, moving toward the central platform with slow, deliberate steps. He towered over Ethan, his 4 eyes burning with cold fury. You do not understand what you are doing, the High Arbiter said. The Council's authority extends across 17,000 systems. We control every trade route, every resource hub, every pathway through this sector of the galaxy. Without our approval, your species will be isolated. Alone, vulnerable. Ethan met his gaze without flinching. Then we will be isolated and alone and vulnerable. But we will be free. There will be consequences, Veilthus warned. Severe consequences. Ethan Cole smiled then. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a man who had made his decision and accepted what it would cost. High Arbiter, he said, humanity has faced consequences before. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us. We have clawed our way up from caves to the stars. Your threats do not frighten us. They only confirm that we made the right choice in coming here today. He turned to his delegation. We're leaving. Commander Lisa Harding fell into step beside him. Daniel Perry and Claire Mitchell followed. The 4 humans walked toward the massive doors at the far end of the hall, their footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. Behind them, Crixala's voice rang out. Let them go. What can one small species do against the combined might of the Galactic Council? They will return within a year, begging for whatever scraps we choose to give them. Laughter filled the hall. Ethan did not look back. He kept walking until the doors closed behind him, until he was back aboard the shuttle that would carry them to their ship, until the blue-white sphere of Nexaris Prime was shrinking in the viewport behind them. Only then did Lisa Harding speak. Well, she said quietly, that could have gone better. Ethan watched the alien world disappear into the darkness of space. No, he said, that went exactly as it needed to. Now we know who they really are, and now we can prepare. Prepare for what? Claire asked. Ethan turned away from the viewport. His eyes were hard, but there was something else there too. Something that looked like hope for what comes next. 5 years passed, and the Galactic Council waited for humanity to break. They imposed economic sanctions first. Human traders were banned from Council space. Ships carrying Earth goods were turned away at every port. The message was clear: submit or starve. Humanity did not starve. High Arbiter Veilthus received reports every month. And every month, they confused him more. Earth's economy should have collapsed within the first year. Instead, it grew. Human colonies spread to 7 new systems, then 12, then 20. They were building something out there in the darkness, and his spies could never get close enough to see what. They are hiding, Ambassador Crixala insisted during one council session. Like frightened animals in a burrow. Eventually, hunger will drive them out. But Veilthus was not so sure. There was something in the way the humans had walked out of his assembly hall that day. Something that still bothered him when he tried to sleep. Commander Lisa Harding had not slept much in 5 years either, but for different reasons. She stood on the bridge of the Constellation, Earth's newest and most advanced starship, watching construction drones assemble the final sections of Waystation Prometheus. The station hung in the heart of a nebula that Council surveys had dismissed as worthless centuries ago. It was exactly the kind of place nobody would think to look. Status report, she called out. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw looked up from his console. He was young, barely 25, but he had proven himself a dozen times over during the construction project. All 12 Prometheus-class carriers are operational, Commander. Fighter production is running 3 weeks ahead of schedule. And the new shield technology passed its final test this morning. Lisa nodded slowly. What about the communication network? Online, across all human-controlled systems, response time is essentially instant. The Council still has no idea how we're coordinating so quickly. That was the key, Lisa knew. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 8,000 years because they controlled information. They controlled the relay stations, the communication hubs, the very flow of knowledge between stars. Without their infrastructure, most species were blind and deaf. But humanity had found another way. On Earth, Chief Negotiator Daniel Perry had spent the 5 years since the failed negotiations doing something the Council never expected. He was not planning military strategy or developing weapons. He was studying. Every species in the Council had grievances. Every alliance had cracks. Daniel mapped them all. The Venthri and the Zethrini nearly went to war 60 years ago, he explained to Ethan Cole during one of their weekly meetings. They sat in a small office in Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing political relationships between dozens of alien species. The Council forced a compromise that neither side wanted. The Venthri lost mining rights they considered sacred. The Zithrani were publicly humiliated. Ethan studied the data, so they hate each other. They hate each other, but they hate the Council's interference even more. And they're not alone. Daniel pulled up another display. The Malkuth Collective has been petitioning for full Council membership for 300 years. Always denied. The Karashi hegemony lost to colony worlds to Council arbitration, worlds they still consider holy ground. The Voran Confederacy pays tribute that amounts to nearly half their economic output. The Council isn't a union, Ethan said slowly, understanding dawning on his face. It's an empire. They've just been better at hiding it. Exactly. They maintain control through 2 things: military intimidation and economic dependency. Every species needs Council trade routes to survive. Every species fears Council warships. But if someone offered an alternative, Ethan leaned back in his chair. We can't fight them directly. Not yet. We don't have to fight them at all, Daniel said. We just have to give the galaxy a choice. While Daniel studied politics, science advisor Claire Mitchell made a discovery that would change everything. Her research vessel, the Pioneer, was exploring an unmapped region of space when they found it. A planet that should not exist, orbiting a star that had died millions of years ago. On its surface were ruins, vast cities of crystal and metal that stretched from pole to pole. Claire walked through those, its empty streets with tears in her eyes. Whoever had built this place had been ancient when the Council was young. They had reached heights of science and art that made even Earth's greatest achievements seem like children's drawings, and then they had vanished. You can't reverse engineer most of it. Claire reported to Earth's leadership 3 months later. The underlying principles are centuries beyond our understanding. But we've adapted what we can. She showed them the shield generators first. Where Council defenses absorbed energy until they overloaded, the precursor technology simply redirected it. A ship equipped with these shields could withstand weapons fire indefinitely. Then came the sensors. They could detect vessels across entire star systems, track movements through hyperspace, see through any cloaking technology the Council possessed. Finally, Claire revealed the communication system. It did not use radio waves or subspace signals or any medium the Council understood. It connected points across any distance, allowing instant contact between ships, stations, and worlds. We've already integrated it into our military network, Lisa Harding added. Every human vessel can now coordinate in real time, no matter where they are in the galaxy. The leaders of Earth sat in silence, absorbing what they had heard. 5 years ago, Ethan Cole said finally, we walked away from the Council because we refused to be slaves. We didn't know if we could survive, let alone compete. But we did more than survive. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. The Council thinks we've been hiding, licking our wounds. Waiting to beg for mercy? He turned back to face the room. They have no idea what we've been building. No idea what we've become. The question is, Daniel said, what do we do now? We have the military capability to defend ourselves. We have knowledge the Council would kill to possess. We have economic systems that no longer depend on their trade routes. What's our next move? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm and certain. We wait, he said. We're not going to start this fight, but when the opportunity comes, when the Council gives us a reason to act, we'll be ready. And when we move, we won't just defend ourselves. We'll show the entire galaxy that there's another way. Another way to do what? Claire asked. Ethan smiled. It was the same cold smile he had shown Velthus 5 years ago. But now there was warmth behind it. Hope to live among the stars. In his chambers on Nexaris Prime, High Arbiter Velthus stared at the latest intelligence report and felt a chill run down his scales. The humans had gone quiet. Too quiet. His spies reported nothing but ordinary activity, peaceful expansion, unremarkable development. But Velthus had ruled the Council for 2 centuries. He knew what silence meant. It meant someone was planning something. He just wished he knew. What? The distress call came at 3 a.m. Shiptime Captain Gregory Dunn was asleep in his quarters aboard the Constellation when the alarm pulled him back to consciousness. He was on his feet and running toward the bridge before his eyes were fully open. His body responding to years of training. Report he ordered as he stepped through the bridge doors. Lieutenant Kevin Shaw turned from his console, his face pale. Refugee ship, Captain. Kirashi origin. They're requesting emergency assistance. Gregory moved to the main display. The image showed a vessel that had seen better days, a cargo ship modified for passenger transport. It was venting atmosphere from at least 3 hull breaches, and its engines were flickering with the telltale signs of imminent failure. Life signs. 1,200, sir, including approximately 300 children.
Ow.
Gregory felt his chest tighten. The Kirashi were one of the species Daniel Perry had identified as potential allies. They had suffered under Council rule for centuries, their holy worlds taken, their people scattered. Many had fled into the uncharted regions of space, searching for freedom. This ship had found its way to human territory. Open a channel, Gregory ordered. The screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was Kirashi, humanoid but with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold all the sorrow in the universe. The being spoke in broken English, clearly learned from intercepted broadcasts. Human vessel, please. We are dying. Our life support fails. Our children are cold, the Kirashi's voice cracked. We have nowhere else to go. Hold on, Gregory said. We're coming to help, Captain. Kevin's voice was sharp. We're receiving another transmission. Venthry patrol ship. They're ordering us to stand down. The main display split to show a second image. A Venthry warship, twice the size of the Constellation, was approaching from the edge of the system. Its weapons ports were open. A harsh voice crackled through the speakers. Human vessel, you are in violation of Council Resolution 7749. All non-member species are required to return refugees to their point of origin. Stand aside and allow us to take custody of the Kirashi ship. Gregory's jaw tightened. He knew what custody meant. The Kirashi would be returned to the regime they had fled. The adults would be imprisoned. The children would be separated from their families. Many would not survive. Captain, Kevin said quietly, what are your orders? Gregory looked at the 2 images on his screen. The desperate refugees. The threatening warship. Council protocol was clear. Earth had never agreed to Council protocols. But following them now would avoid conflict, avoid risk, avoid consequences. He thought about why he had joined the Earth Defense Fleet. He thought about his own daughter, safe on a colony world in human space. He thought about the 300 children on that dying ship, cold and frightened and running out of air.
Ow.
Launch rescue shuttles, he ordered. Bring those people aboard. Sir, the Venthry can file a complaint. Gregory sat down in his command chair. Shields up. All hands to battle stations. The constellation moved toward the refugee ship with purpose. Shuttles launched from her bays, racing toward the damaged vessel. On the bridge, officers worked with calm efficiency, preparing for whatever came next. The Venthry ship moved to intercept. Human vessel, this is your final warning. You are interfering with Council operations? Surrender immediately or face military action. Gregory opened a channel. Venthry Patrol, this is Captain Gregory Dunn of the Earth Vessel Constellation. Those are civilians in distress. They have requested our help, and we are going to provide it. I suggest you keep your distance. You dare threaten a Council warship. You are nothing but primitives. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Stand down or be destroyed. Gregory smiled slightly. Commander Shaw, are our guests aboard yet? Kevin checked his console. Last shuttle is docking now, sir. All 1,200 refugees are safely aboard. Excellent. Helm, set course for way station Prometheus. Maximum speed. The Venthry commander's voice turned cold. You will not escape. All units, open fire. 3 Venthry warships emerged from hiding positions around the system. They had planned this ambush well, Gregory realized. They had expected the humans to fold at the first sign of resistance. They had expected wrong. The first volley of Venthry weapons struck the constellation's shields. Energy crackled across the barrier, brilliant blue and white, but the shields held. The precursor technology absorbed the assault without strain. Turn fire, Gregory ordered. Disable their weapons and engines. No killing shots. The constellation responded with precision. Beams of light struck the Venthry ships at exactly the right points, shorting out weapon systems, overloading engine cores. Within 11 minutes, all 3 enemy vessels were drifting, powerless but intact. Not a single life had been lost on either side. The Venthry commander's voice returned to the channel, but the arrogance was gone. This is impossible. Our sensors show no known weapon signature. What are you? Gregory leaned forward. We're humans, Commander, and we just wanted to help some people in trouble. There was no need for this to become a fight. You made it one. Remember that when you make your report to the Council, cut the channel and turn to his crew. Get our guests settled. Make sure the children are warm and fed, and send a message to Ambassador Cole. I think he'll want to know about this. News of the Karashi rescue spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The Council tried to suppress it. They called it an act of piracy, an unprovoked attack on peaceful vessels. Ambassador Crixella demanded emergency sessions, calling for immediate military action against humanity. But the truth could not be contained. On 100 worlds, people watched footage of the constellation standing alone against 3 warships, refusing to abandon refugees to their fate. They saw the human captain offer mercy to his enemies even after victory. They heard the Karashi survivors tell their story, crying with gratitude as they described how strangers had risked everything to save them. The Malkuth collective sent a secret message to Earth within a week. They wanted to talk about alliance. The Karashi hegemony followed 3 days later. Their ambassador spoke with emotion in his voice, saying that his people had waited centuries for someone to show them kindness. They would not forget. Even some Zethroni factions, tired of being junior partners in Council politics, reached out through hidden channels. They were interested in alternatives. On Earth, Ethan Cole read each message with growing hope. This was what he had been waiting for. Not a war to be won, but a movement to be built. We're calling it the Human Compact, he announced to his team. But it's not just for humans. Every species that joins us joins as an equal. No tier systems. No restricted zones. No tribute payments. Full partnership. The Council won't accept this, Daniel Perry warned. They'll see it as a direct challenge to their authority. It is a direct challenge to their authority, Ethan agreed. But we're not challenging them with weapons. We're challenging them with ideas. We're showing the galaxy that there's another way to live together among the stars. Commander Lisa Harding spoke up. They'll come for us eventually. When they realize they're losing control, they'll throw everything they have at us. I know, Ethan said. That's why we need to be ready. Not just militarily, but diplomatically. When that day comes, we need enough allies that the Council can't simply crush us without destroying themselves. He looked around the room at the people who had worked so hard for this moment. Claire Mitchell, whose discoveries had given them the tools they needed. Daniel Perry, whose knowledge of Council politics had shown them the path. Lisa Harding, who had built a fleet capable of defending everything they valued. And beyond this room, millions of humans and thousands of Karashi and Malkith and others who had chosen hope over fear. The Council ruled through intimidation, Ethan said. They made everyone believe there was no other option. We're proving them wrong. Every day we exist, every ally we gain, every refugee we save, we prove them wrong. On Nexaris Prime, High Arbiter Veilthus watched the news reports with growing unease. His coalition was fracturing. Species that had been loyal for centuries were suddenly asking questions, demanding better terms. Talking about the humans and their compact, for the first time in his long career, Veilthus felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The Council fleet gathered at the edge of human space like a storm about to break. 600 warships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming with the colors of 12 species. Venthri dreadnoughts, massive and bristling with weapons. Zithrani carriers, their holds filled with fighter craft. Vorn battlecruisers, Malith destroyers that had been pressed into service against their will. And dozens of other vessels from every corner of Council space. High Arbiter Veilthus stood on the bridge of the Council flagship, watching the fleet assemble through the main viewport. He had traveled with the Armada personally, determined to witness humanity's surrender with his own 4 eyes. How many ships do the humans have? He asked. Admiral Morcon of the Venthri consulted his tactical display. Intelligence reports approximately 40 vessels, High Arbiter. Mostly light cruisers and escort craft. 1 or 2 larger ships, but nothing that can match our firepower and their allies. The Kirashi have no military to speak of. The Malkith Compact members are untested in battle. The other species that have joined them are minor powers at best. Morkan's mandibles clicked with confidence. This will be over quickly. Veilthus nodded slowly, but something still troubled him. The humans had been too quiet in the weeks since his fleet began assembling. They had not tried to negotiate, had not sent desperate messages begging for peace. They were simply waiting. It reminded him of how they had walked out of his East Assembly Hall 7 years ago. Calm, certain, unafraid. Signal the human flagship, Veilthus ordered. Inform them that if they surrender unconditionally, we will spare their colony worlds. They have 1 hour to respond. The message went out across all frequencies. For several long minutes, there was only silence. Then a voice came back, clear and strong. Broadcast on an open channel that every ship in both fleets could hear. High Arbiter Veilthus. This is Commander Lisa Harding of the Earth Vessel Constellation. Veilthus leaned forward. You have received our terms? I have. And I have a response for you. Lisa Harding stood on her bridge, surrounded by officers from 6 species. Humans worked alongside Kirashi. Malkith sat at stations beside former Council citizens who had defected to the Compact. They were a crew unlike any the galaxy had seen before. 7 years ago, Lisa said, Ambassador Ethan Cole told you that humanity doesn't respond well to threats. You didn't listen. You've spent centuries believing that power comes from numbers, from size, from intimidation. Letting her words carry across the void. Let me show you what power really looks like. Behind the constellation, the nebula began to glow. Admiral Morkins' compound eyes widened as his sensors filled with new contacts. Ships were emerging from the cosmic clouds, one after another. Their signatures appearing on his display like stars, being born not 40 ships, 400, Prometheus-class carriers. Their hulls gleaming with technology the Council had never seen. Flanking them were vessels bearing Malkith colors, Karashi markings, and the symbols of 8 other species that had joined the human compact. They moved in perfect formation, responding to commands faster than any fleet in Council history. That's impossible, Morkan whispered. Our intelligence reported. Your intelligence? Lisa interrupted. Saw what we wanted you to see. For 5 years, You watched us build openly in systems you knew about. You never thought to look in the places you had dismissed as worthless. You never imagined we might be working with species you considered beneath your notice. Balthus gripped the arms of his command chair. All ships, prepare for battle. We still outnumber them. We can still High Arbiter. Lisa's voice cut through his orders. You have a choice to make. You can fight, and many beings on both sides will die. Or you can stand down and talk. We came here to defend ourselves, not to conquer. The decision is yours. For a long moment, silence filled the void between the fleets. Then Morkan snarled an order, and the Council fleet opened fire. The battle would be studied for centuries afterward. Military academies across the galaxy would analyze every maneuver, every tactic, every decision made in those 3 terrible hours. The Council fleet had numbers. They had firepower. They had 8,000 years of warfare experience. The human compact had something else. Council weapons struck compact shields and dissipated harmlessly. Energy beams that should have torn ships apart were redirected into empty space. The precursor technology did exactly what Claire Mitchell had promised it would do. Meanwhile, compact vessels moved with coordination the Council had never achieved. Their instantaneous communication network allowed them to react as a single organism, adjusting formations, exploiting weaknesses, supporting each other across distances that should have made coordination impossible, and they fought with precision that bordered on impossible. Compact weapons, targeted engines, disabled weapon systems, knocked out power generators. One by one, Council ships went dark, drifting helplessly but intact. Their crews were alive, their life support functioning. But they could no longer fight. Not a single vessel was destroyed. The Zethrani contingent surrendered first. Their commander broadcast his intention to withdraw, and his ships simply stopped firing, waiting for compact forces to secure them. The Vorn followed minutes later, their sea Apton openly cursing the Council for dragging them into a battle they had never wanted. Even the proud Venthri began to break. Morkan watched his flagship's shields fail, felt the ship shudder as precision strikes disabled every weapon system on board. His proud dreadnought, the terror of 100 worlds, was reduced to a drifting hulk in less than an hour. Finally, only Valthus' command ship remained active. Its weapons were gone. Its engines were failing, but its communications array still functioned, and the High Arbiter had one last message to send. Human vessel, his voice was quiet. Defeated, we surrender. Lisa Harding let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Around her, officers from a dozen species exchanged looks of disbelief. They had done it. They had faced the combined might of the Galactic Council and won. Acknowledge their surrender, she ordered. Begin rescue and recovery operations. I want medical teams on every disabled ship within the hour. And someone get me a channel to the High Arbiter's vessel. When the connection was established, Lisa spoke carefully. High Arbiter Valthus, humanity did not come to this galaxy to conquer. We came to participate. You could have had us as partners. Instead, you forced us to prove ourselves as equals. She gestured, and the tactical display shifted to show the full scope of the battlefield. 600 Council ships, all disabled, all intact. Tens of thousands of crew members, all alive. Consider this proof, Lisa continued. We could have destroyed your fleet. We could have killed every being on every ship. We chose not to. Remember that when you decide what happens next, shuttle detached from the constellation, heading toward Valthus' crippled command ship. Aboard was Ambassador Ethan Cole, carrying a new proposal. One written not in terms of surrender, but in terms of change. The battle was over. The real work was about to begin. On the bridge of his broken ship, Valthus watched the human shuttle approach. His scales had lost their iridescent sheen, turned dull and gray with shock. Everything he had believed about the universe, about power, about the natural order of things, had been shattered in 3 hours. His aide approached nervously. High Arbiter, what do we do now? Valthus was silent for a long moment. Then, Slowly, he rose from his command chair. "We listen," he said. "For the first time in 8,000 years, we listen." 2 years had passed since the battle at the edge of human space, and the grand assembly hall of Nexaris Prime looked very different now. The old hierarchy was gone. Where once the Council's 12 species had sat in elevated positions of power, looking down on petitioners and subjects, now representatives of 43 civilizations gathered as equals, the seating had been redesigned into a great circle, with no position higher than any other. The floating light orbs cast warm golden light instead of the cold blue that Ethan Cole remembered from his first visit. He stood at the central podium, the same place where Valthus had once dismissed humanity as primitive insects. But Ethan was not there to gloat or to pronounce judgment. He was there to build something new. "The Galactic Compact," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "It's not a replacement for the Council. It is an evolution. Every species that joins does so voluntarily. Every voice carries equal weight. Every world maintains its sovereignty while contributing to our collective prosperity." Around the hall, delegates from dozens of species listened. Karashi representatives sat beside their former persecutors, their blue skin no longer pale with fear. Malkith diplomats wore the formal robes of full members, a status they had sought for 3 centuries. Even Ven3 officials were present, humbled but not humiliated, learning a new way of relating to other species in the gallery above the main floor. Former High Arbiter Velthus watched with an expression that mixed resentment with something that might have been admiration. He was no longer High Arbiter, of course. That title had been abolished along with the tier system and the attribute requirements and all the other tools of control the old council had used. Now Velthus was simply an observer, a relic of a previous age, allowed to witness the birth of something he had never thought possible. The humans had done what he believed no species could do. They had broken the council not through destruction, but through example. They had offered the galaxy something better, and the galaxy had chosen to accept it. Commander Lisa Harding sat in the section reserved for military officials, her uniform bearing the new insignia of the Compact Defense Force. It was a coalition military, built on cooperation rather than domination. Officers from a dozen species trained together, fought together, protected each other. Beside her sat Captain Gregory Dunn, who had been promoted twice since the Karashi rescue. His crew of the Constellation had become legendary, symbols of what the Compact represented. They had risked everything to save strangers and had shown mercy to their enemies in victory. That example had spread. Across the galaxy, stories were told of human compassion, human courage, human stubbornness in the face of impossible odds. Other species were learning that strength did not require cruelty, that power did not demand oppression. Chief Negotiator Daniel Perry had become the Compact's first Secretary of Interspecies Relations. His years of studying council politics now served a different purpose. Instead of finding weaknesses to exploit, he built bridges between species that had been enemies for centuries, the Ven3 and the Zetherani, who had nearly gone to war 60 years ago, now shared trade routes and research facilities. The Karashi had been granted new colony worlds to replace those taken from them. The Vorn Confederacy no longer paid tribute to anyone, and their economy was flourishing for the first time in generations. Science advisor Claire Mitchell led the Precursor Research Initiative, a collaborative effort to understand the ancient technology that had helped humanity survive. She shared her discoveries freely, believing that knowledge belonged to everyone. Labs on 100 worlds now worked together, making breakthroughs that benefited all species equally. After the ceremony, Velthus approached Ethan in the corridor outside the assembly hall. The old arbiter moved slowly now, his scales dull with age, but his 4 eyes were still sharp. "Could have destroyed us," Velthus said quietly. "After everything we did, every insult, every threat, for every attempt to crush your species, you had the power to end the council entirely. Why didn't you?" Ethan considered the question. 7 years ago, he had walked out of this building humiliated and angry. He had wanted nothing more than to prove these arrogant beings wrong, to make them pay for their contempt. But somewhere along the way, His purpose had evolved. Because destruction is easy, Ethan replied. Any species with enough weapons can tear things down. Building something better, that's hard. That's what makes it worthwhile. He extended his hand, palm up, in the human gesture of peace. Veilthus had learned to recognize it over the past 2 years. The galaxy is big enough for all of us, Veilthus. It always was. You just needed someone to remind you. The former arbiter hesitated. His pride, his centuries of authority, his entire worldview demanded that he reject this gesture. He had ruled the council with absolute power. He had commanded fleets and decided the fates of worlds. And now a human, a member of a species he had once dismissed as insects, was offering him friendship. But Veilthus had also seen what humanity could do. Not just in battle, but in leadership, in compassion, in their stubborn refusal to become the tyrants they had opposed. They had every reason to be cruel, and they had chosen kindness instead. Slowly, awkwardly, Veilthus reached out and clasped Ethan's hand. I do not understand your species, the old arbiter admitted. I have studied you for 7 years, and I still do not understand how you think. Why you help those who cannot help you in return. Why you spare enemies who would have shown you no mercy. Why you build when you could destroy. Ethan smiled. Maybe that's what makes us human. We've always believed that tomorrow can be better than today. Even when everything suggests otherwise. Outside the assembly hall, ships from 43 worlds hung in orbit around Nyxoris Prime. Human vessels flew alongside Karashi cruisers, Malkuth transports, and even Venthari frigates. Colors and designs that had once represented. Enemies now formed a tapestry of cooperation. Lisa Harding found Ethan on the observation deck, watching the fleet through the massive windows. She stood beside him in comfortable silence for a while. We did it, she said finally. Against all odds, against everything they threw at us, we actually did it. Not just us, Ethan replied. Everyone who believed there could be something better. The Karashi who kept hoping even when hope seemed foolish. The Malkuth, who fought for recognition for 300 years. Even the Venthari, who finally learned that strength doesn't mean cruelty. He turned to face her. We lit the spark. But the fire belongs to everyone now, Lisa nodded slowly. So what happens next? Ethan looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were waking up to a new reality. A galaxy where power was shared, where voices were heard, where species could choose their own destinies. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges, conflicts, setbacks. Building something better was never easy, but for the first time in 8,000 years, the galaxy was moving forward together.